Thank you, friends. When I ask myself what it means to be a Quaker, why I am a Quaker, then I often start with the idea of uncertainty. For me, meeting for worship provides a space where I can be uncertain, within which I can explore thoughts and ideas. While in my everyday life, then I look for knowledge and control in the spaces in between daily tasks. I look for an acknowledgement of the limits of knowledge, a celebration of shades of grey. My faith is built on exploring doubt. So I look to explore the testimonies, to turn them over, pull them apart, study them, put them back together again. Now I want to talk out loud, to think out loud about equality, because it's a quality we are most at risk of taking for granted. We think it's a straightforward concept, but it's a quality which we hear discussed and debated by people who use the same word but mean something very different. We hear about equality alongside freedom and self-determination. We hear about how we live in an equal society where we are all considered on our own merits as individuals, and yet people march in protest of policies which seem to decrease equality. And every day the news seems full of someone somewhere saying something negative about an entire community somewhere else, an entire community they've never even met. This lack of equality is found in gender, sexuality, race, class, disability, and in many other ways, both in subtle and in straightforward ways. Consider for a moment the racism suffered by refugees, the lack of understanding around mental health issues. Consider that 1 in 4 women will probably be violently attacked by a partner during their lifetime. Consider that last year 1 million people visited food banks. Consider that many elected representatives blamed flooding and natural disasters on same-sex marriage. And consider that in many areas of the country, the minimum wage is not a living wage. Does that indicate that we are living in an equal society? Let me use the feminist community to demonstrate how the word can be used in different ways, with different meanings. One woman can say that equality means her equal choice as an individual, being judged on her own merits. Yet another can say that it must be based in a community of women, that it means nothing without community. Yet another can say that it means her free ability to return to a 1950s lifestyle, and another that it is always progressive, left-wing and modern. What is it about the word which we find so difficult? This isn't a simple concept. I suspect that within Quakers we believe we have a shared understanding of what equality means, and we are almost certainly entirely incorrect to think that. We may all be talking about the same colour, but the gulf between different shades can be immense. When you mean turquoise and I mean teal, we're talking across purposes just as much as if we were talking about red and green. I have no desire to tell you exactly what to think, but I want you to question, to consider the meaning of the word equality. I want us to have more questions than answers, to doubt the completeness of our own gut reactions, to break down the certainty that we might have, because black and white concepts get us nowhere. I want us to think it possible that we might be mistaken, because that's how we get to stand in someone else's shoes. Though the myth may be greater than the fact, we have historically spoken out for people. We have stood up for women, we've stood up for prisoners, we've stood up for slaves, and recently we have stood up for same-sex marriage. We campaign for equal marriage. And yet we have as many taboos as others. Class is a particular taboo. We may not all come from the same place, but we often end up in the same social class. And more so than class, What about education? What about intelligence? The educated can humiliate the uneducated, can make them feel as though their lack of quickness in a particular way of thinking, their lack of expertise in a particular subject, that this means they are worth less. And this matters because class and education are the things which particularly contribute to where someone ends up. They matter for how poor or how rich we are. They influence economics. And what about intelligence? Why do I feel so bad talking about intelligence? On the one hand, we're not all born the same. We're not born with the same intelligence. But on the other, intelligence is no more than a measurement of what our society considers to be good. Science and maths and language and creativity are valued. People who can do these things are people who are intelligent. And manual dexterity and physical prowess are not valued, although beauty still has a special place in our hearts. Being born with the right skills means power. So when we think about equality, we should consider both that we are born diverse with different skills, and that society places different values on those different skills. When I first started this lecture, there were a number of questions I had, things I asked myself. What is equality? How do we measure it? What do we mean by equal choices? Do we mean starting in the same place or finishing in the same place? If we've got two different groups with competing values, how can we treat them both equally? Is equality a zero-sum game, a battle between two sides where one must win and another must lose? Are all rights equal? When we talk about equality, do we mean something which is absolutely equal on a particular factor, or a broader sense of equal worth across multiple factors? When we say we want equality, is that shorthand for something which is more equal rather than absolutely equal? In the same way that we call the night dark, even though it is not the absolute darkness found in the deepest caves. This talk isn't long enough for all of these, so I'm going to start with a few ambiguities right at the heart of equality. These are ambiguities, not conflicts, because I think it's about a balancing act, rather than choosing one of two competing ideals. These ambiguities are opportunity and outcome, community and the individual, diversity and uniformity, then moving on to a bit of expertise and elitism, and a little bit leadership and loyalty.